Today is one of those days where I wonder if people know who are watching C-SPAN or watch reports or in the gallery what the heck is happening. So I thought I'd come down here and maybe tell you what's happening. For about 4 months, Senator Lankford, Senator Sinema, and Senator Murphy got together with the charge of trying to come up with a bipartisan approach to the situation at the border. I think by most objective measures, everyone I know, because it now even shows up in polls, recognize that we've got an out-of-control situation at the border. We clearly have people that should come to this country and should be able to ask for asylum, but it's been abused. I mean, the cartels are making about $1 billion a year and charging tolls coming across the border, and if you don't pay the toll, you're probably going to get killed. You get about one chance to cross the border without paying a toll, $5,000 if you're from Central America, $50,000 if you're from China. But if you try crossing that border, I've been there. They've got a line of sight, and if you try and cross that border without paying that toll, paying a transnational criminal organization, they're going to kill you. Now, they do let some people coming across the border without having paid a toll, but they've got to work it off once they get here. They're effectively indentured servants that are doing the work of cartels. This is not hyperbole. This is a briefing that I've gotten from law enforcement officials, Democrats, Republicans, independents in the Biden administration. This is real. This is not politics, not from me anyway. So James Lankford, representing the Republican Party, went down, tried to negotiate a deal. And he worked hard at it. James Lankford is from Oklahoma, a ruby red state. James Lankford is considered to be one of the most conservative members of the U.S. Senate. And to see members of my conference and people out in the country criticizing James Lankford as some sort of a squish or some sort of a sellout really tells me that the people here have to know, so they must be misinforming people. And the people out there are believing it because they're hearing people here say that James Lankford sold out. Couldn't be further from the truth. The fact of the matter is, the bill that they negotiated, it still needed a little bit of work, but it's a dramatic improvement over the status quo. And why did we think we even had to go down this path? Because President Biden has apparently forgotten over the last 3 years all of the executive orders that he's rescinded that have caused the border situation to get worse. President Biden needs to be told by his advisors that he in fact has tools without a single bill being passed here that could bring the situation at the border under some semblance of control, but he's chosen not to. So now we've got some of our members, my members, who think that we've lost the argument, that for some reason, because we weren't able to get this border bill passed, that somehow Republicans own the responsibility for an out-of-control border situation that started after President Biden got sworn in. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not have this problem. You could have whatever arguments you want to have about President Trump, but the one thing I will tell you about the border, it was under control under President Trump, and it's out of control under President Biden. No laws changed. No authorities have expired. President Biden has chosen not to use authorities he has today. And so I wanted to come down here and set the record straight. First, on Senator Lankford. I don't know if any other member has come down and talked about him. I voted yesterday not to move forward on the border package because I've always said unless we can convince more than half of our Republican majority that this bill, that they would support this bill, it didn't make sense to send a bill to a Republican-led House that didn't have a majority of the Republicans here in the Senate. That's just knowing how a bill becomes law and knowing that we needed the strength of that message in order to have any prayer of getting the bill passed when it goes over to the House. So the border bill is where it is, and it's a shame. It's an opportunity lost, and I will guarantee you, if we're in power in the White House, if Republicans are in power, we're going to regret that some aspects of this bill weren't passed. The bill was also endorsed by the Border Patrol Council. The Border Patrol Council is the law enforcement agency on the border. When I hear the Border Patrol Council say they've endorsed something, they have their necks on the line. Their lives, Border Patrol agents have lost their lives over the past several years because of dangerous encounters at the border. So when I see the Border Patrol Council endorse something, ladies and gentlemen, even if you oppose the bill, understand that law enforcement, those people on the line at the border endorse this bill. Clearly they want more. They've communicated to us that they want more, but they said that this was positive progress. But that's an opportunity lost. And I'm okay with that, and I'm at peace with having voted against moving forward on it because I knew we wouldn't have a majority of our conference. But now what do we have before us? We have a bill that is primarily focused on providing aid to Ukraine, to Israel, and to Taiwan. So it's called a supplemental bill. It's an appropriation. It's us having to authorize the use of these funds. Now, we were supposed to leave today for 2 weeks. We were supposed to go on recess. And Senator Schumer made a decision that I happen to agree with. He's decided that we're not going to leave here until we settle this issue. We have some people say, well, we need time to think about it. You know, this is a planned recess. We need to move on and step back and reflect, maybe negotiate another border bill. That's not going to happen. Now let's talk about what's before us. Do we care about this page or this chapter in history? I do. I mean, some people want to go away or think about it, but I think about right now and 24 hours a day since February of 2022, Ukrainian soldiers in trenches trying to defend their homeland. So I know on TV, and I know to everybody else, this is just something that's happening over in Europe. Think about these people who are fighting for their existence. And we're sitting here saying maybe we can take a couple of weeks before we decide on it. Putin would love nothing more than that. Ladies and gentlemen, if we withdraw from Ukraine, if the United States, the leader of the free world, says that we're no longer interested in defending freedom and countering Russia, Russia will win. And at some point forward, we will regret the day that we avoided helping the Ukrainians fight their war, because we are most likely, those who would make that decision are making a decision to someday put American lives at risk at a war somewhere. Maybe in Russia, or maybe in Europe, but maybe in China. The people who are watching the decisions that this body is going to make over the next few days, Xi Jinping is probably more interested and more hopeful that we fail to make a decision to support Ukraine than Vladimir Putin. This world is small today. We don't have, as the leader of the free world, the luxury of only being focused on one place at a time. We have to focus on Ukraine and defend freedom there. We have to focus on the South China Sea, Taiwan, and the risk there. And we have to focus on our friend and ally Israel in the Middle East. We have to make the tough decision and sometimes cut through the noise and go back home and explain to the American people how critical this decision is. Don't make the mistake of thinking it's just a channel change away from watching something else that's going on in the world, ladies and gentlemen. People's lives are on the line. Tens of thousands of people have died. Women have been raped. Children have been kidnapped. And Putin's okay with that. Does this United States stand down when you're talking about that kind of a dictator, that murderer and thug? God, I hope not. And I don't care how painful it is politically for somebody to go back home and explain this. It bears no resemblance to what people in Israel felt on October the 7th and to what people in Ukraine have felt for the last 2 years. And it will be the same in Taiwan if we don't act. So, over the next couple of days, you're wondering why nothing's happening here, why there are no votes. Well, Leader Schumer laid down, they call it a motion to proceed, and at least 60 people needed to vote on it in order for us to proceed to considering the bill. So now we have a bill here on the floor, and that bill has funding for Ukraine, it has funding for Israel, and it has funding for Taiwan. Now, you're wondering, why are we not down here voting and doing other things? Because right now, we're doing what they call hotlining votes. We're communicating to all the offices certain amendments that we want to pass. But then, because the Senate, any individual member, I'm Thom Tillis from North Carolina. I'm not supposed to be talking to y'all, by the way, because I think it's a violation of the rules. So I'm not really talking to y'all. I'm just looking in that direction. But anyway, you have to get consent in this body to get anything done. And any one member can gum up the works. And so right now, we have people saying we must have amendments on the bill. We must have amendments on the bill. And then they're privately saying, but I'm not going to give up a second of time between now and Monday to let those amendments occur. So we can't have it both ways. Guys, it's fine. If on Monday you get angry because no amendments were actually passed, it's because you haven't been able to cooperate. This is a give and take organization. If you don't show some flexibility, yielding back time, then we're just going to sit here until the mandatory time occurs, and then we're going to have a vote, and then people are going to be mad because they're going to say either the minority leader or the majority leader had this baked in all along, and they were never going to allow a vote. That couldn't be further from the truth. If you, as a member of the Senate, want to cooperate, we could get a slate of amendments done here. We could get an agreement that they could be heard. We can vote on them, but that's not going to happen likely. So I just feel like we've got to be honest with ourselves and recognize that if we don't come up with agreements, it's not because it was baked in, it's not because any leader already had it planned and is the puppet master to everything going on here. It's because members are making a conscious decision to grind cooperation to a halt. Now let me just go back to where I started. The stakes are high here. Temperatures are high, but come on, guys. I mean, we're U.S. senators. Get over it and do your job. Temperatures are high here, but the reality is you should kind of cast aside the inconvenience that working this weekend may represent to you and think about the inconvenience that Hamas has put on the Israelis, that Putin has put on the Ukrainians. That's a real inconvenience. What we are doing here is living out the privilege and the honor of being U.S. senators, and I expect my colleagues to grow a spine, do the work of the Senate, and go back home and explain what it is we're doing and why it is we're doing it. Thank you, Mr. President.